My name is Jen, and I am on a journey in order to break free from the destructive patterns of disordered eating and in order to embrace a nourishing lifestyle. My roadmap can be described using an acronym of the word Nourisher. So I'm doing daily video blog posts in order to encourage you, equip you, and keep you up to date on my progress. If this content is helpful or encouraging to you, please consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and sharing with others. It is my deep desire that these videos would help to ignite nourishing transformations in us all. Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining me for my Nourisher Check In today. You may be noticing one of two different things. One thing you may be noticing is that I am in a new location. I'm actually on a break at work, and that is why I have this lovely white wall behind me. And another thing you may have noticed is that I did not check in yesterday. I think that yesterday was the very first day since I actually drew a line in the sand and said, hey, I'm going to embrace this nourishing lifestyle. Actually had this, acronym come together and decided to invite you to join me on this journey. Since that day that I started doing these videos, I think that it's the first time I ever missed. And so let me tell you what happened. I was putting my daughter to bed, and as I often do, snuggling with her, I fell asleep. And then, typically after about 30 minutes to an hour, I kind of wake up again. And typically I would then go on to get back to work and do the dishes and get breakfast and lunches organized for the next day and check in with you guys and do all of that. And I thought, you know what? The most nourishing thing that I can do for myself right now is to put on my pajamas and crawl into bed. And that's exactly what I did. So that's why you didn't see me yesterday, but I am really have been looking forward to checking in with you, having missed saying hi to you yesterday. So let's dive right in. So N, of course, in the acronym stands for Notice My Emotions. So I recognize, I've said before, that tiredness is not an emotion, and I do stand by that. However, it is notable the amount of fatigue that I am experiencing right now. Not only in my body, like my body feels pretty good, but in my mind, like my mind feels tired and my motivation seems lacking. And so I'm noticing that and want to be conscious of that. The other thing that I'm noticing on an emotional level is a lot of excitement. So I work in the hospitality industry, and as you can imagine, it was really pulverized by the pandemic. And my husband and I run a facility together, and today was the first day that we have been able to welcome guests in a very long time. And I am so delighted to see the facility used to care for people and to provide a warm and welcoming environment. And so that's just giving me a ton of joy and delight today to see the facilities used for what it was designed to be used for. But maybe going into opening up to others, you can imagine that getting the facilities ready, when we typically do this, we usually host international volunteers from around the world who come and live in community with us and help us do these tasks. And of course, those people have not been able to travel and haven't been able to come and join us. So because of that, we were left, my husband and I, alone to get the facilities ready. So when some of our friends heard that that was happening, they immediately said, we're coming to help. And, as I noticed, and they did, they came and joyfully rolled up their sleeves, and, they're not the type of people who say we don't do windows. They did windows, they scrubbed toilets, they did everything so joyfully. And I noticed a very interesting combination of emotions in me as I received this incredible gift of generosity in terms of their time today, or for these last few days. And the one thing that I definitely felt was overwhelming gratitude and this feeling of being loved and cared for and supported and encouraged. And the other thing that I felt was a feeling of feeling very badly and almost more guilt than shame, that I was making them do this cleaning, which I know I wasn't. There willingly of their own accord. They even offered, I didn't even ask, but there was just something about receiving that felt kind of a little bit yucky. And I noticed, my husband has mentioned this to me before, even when we first got married years ago, if he brought home flowers, he said I wouldn't take them from him. I would say thank you, but I wouldn't take them out of his hand. He'd just be standing there at the door was still holding these flowers. And I had a really hard time taking them and engaging with them and receiving that act of love and care. And so this is really interesting for me, even when we think back to, if you remember when I was reading that book, To Eat or Not to Eat, the Women's Guide, it was talking about how often how we show up in relationships is often mirrored in our relationship with food. And I struggle with binge eating, and I think my tendencies parallel, can often parallel those of you who may struggle with bulimic tendencies. And I have a desire to purge, and and so it's something about that. I have a capacity and a desire to give, but receiving is a little bit difficult for me. So I want to note that, and I want to be aware of that. I want to continue to heal that area of my heart and mind. So let me also say about opening up to others that today is Thursday where I am, which means that it is Journey Group Day. So I mentioned to you, if you're of the Christian faith, that there's this great ministry called Deeper Walk International that has these journey groups, kind of like a small group. And what we get together to do is to use all the latest neuroscience to help rewire our brains towards greater connectivity with God, healthier relationships with other people, and really repairing and working on maturity, on how do we grow maturity and capacity as people from a spiritual and neurological perspective. So it's been so nourishing being part of that group. And today, and often our group leader will ask for stories of an example. If there's a particular maturity skill or particular concept that we're working on, she'll ask us to share stories with where that skill or that concept was in play. And it's so helpful to hear someone tell a story and to be able to see that skill work out in real life and to hear it modeled. And what I love about that is that I don't know if you've ever been around like a conversation table, or maybe been out for supper with friends, and the conversational ball kind of gets passed back and forth, where someone will tell a story or talk about something, and then someone say, oh yeah, well, that reminds me of time when I did this, and then that person asks a question about that, and then well, that reminds me of this, and it just kind of flows really naturally. And that's kind of what I feel like telling stories does, is it ignites, it sparks, it brings our minds alive to new possibilities, as well as retrieving old memories of, oh yeah, I remember a time when I had a similar experience to that too. And it can really unlock so much. And we remember that when we relive experiences in a more meditative fashion and remember what it looked like, tasted like, smelled like, felt like to be back in that moment again, our body can almost recreate the same neurochemistry of that moment and help us to live that again. So that's been a very, very rewarding and impactful times, way or part of our times together that's been really healing and helpful for me. Understanding the cycle. Because of this level of fatigue, I know that a trigger could really set me going. So I think if anything, I'm kind of leaning towards restricting a little bit too much right now. I haven't had a really good sit down big meal today. I've eaten healthy food throughout the day, lots of nuts. I had some smoked salmon. Oh, I had a good lunch actually. I did sit down for lunch. Roasted sweet potatoes. I've been grabbing good things, but I've been doing lots of grab on the go. Other than lunch was the only meal that I sat down for, and I had some baked cauliflower and some smoked salmon, some good things there. But so I think that, even if I skip ahead to insulin friendly eating, I've been eating good foods, but I need to monitor this fatigue and make sure that it keeps me from restricting too much or from hitting a trigger and going into a binge or a purge cycle. So keep checking in on me with that. Rewire my brain. So a dear friend, maybe she's even listening right now, you know who you are, and I love you very much, sent me a great podcast that I really enjoyed while I was doing my cleaning and scrubbing today. I had this podcast on, and it was with Dr. Andrew Huberman. Sorry, I forgot how to pronounce his last name, but he is tenured at Stanford, and he's a neurologist. And he was talking about so many fascinating things. But the one thing he was talking about is when we feel like we can't control our minds, which often, I mean, how many times, I don't know if that's been your experience, but, you know, I go to bed and my mind is racing. And how do you go about kind of taking back the steering wheel of your mind back? And he had this great thing where he said, trying to control your mind with your mind, kind of like tell yourself or think, okay, you need to stop thinking now, is like trying to hold on to fog. You can't do it. So he says, when you're trying to alter what's happening in your mind, you need to turn to your body. You need to turn to a very mechanical tool that is available to us that's connected to our minds. And we've talked about this before in terms of when I don't know what I'm feeling emotionally, I do a body scan, right? To see what is my body telling me that I'm feeling, between tight shoulders, tense stomach, pressure on my chest, clenching of my jaw. What is my body telling me that I'm feeling, so I can listen that way? So this is a similar concept. So let's say that my mind is racing and I can't get to sleep. And he recommends turning to our bodies, and you can't tell, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I was just noticing my heart rate was really up a lot of the time. I can't tell my heart rate go down. I can't tell my digestive tract, okay, start digesting now, right? But I can control my breathing. Even though it's an automatic response system in the body, I can intervene and think about it intentionally and slow it down. So he actually said this they called the physiological sigh he was teaching in this podcast, which I will put in the additional resources below. And so what he was just saying is this physiological sigh was developed by, physiologists in the 1930s. And what they would do is they would take in a deep breath and then take in a little bit more, like an extra little sip, and then have a nice long exhale. And what this did was it actually, it helped to express or to get out a bunch of carbon dioxide, which would immediately have a calming effect on the body. So I'll show you what this looks like. So you can breathe in or out through the nose or mouth, whatever works best for you. And again, I'll put the podcast, and what time in the podcast thing is around 35 minutes. He explains this too, if you want to just listen to that specific spot. But you take in your breath, you go. And it immediately promotes a calming sensation in your body and helps you to kind of regain the steering wheel of your mind. So I've been doing that throughout the day, and I've actually done it a couple of times with my kids, and actually got them laughing too, because I made them do it with me while holding hands when they were upset. So it's been a good tool. So that's rewiring my brain. Insulin-friendly eating I already chatted about, so I don't want to talk too much about that. And sleep, I mentioned that I had a great night's sleep and a long sleep last night. And when I look through where we've been traveling and what my weeks have been like since starting this journey together with you, I see like the first week was like sugar withdrawal. That was like the overarching. And then the second week was a bit of euphoria of being over the sugar withdrawal and some excitement. And then the third week, it was like the big emotions like hit me like a ton of bricks, because I wasn't turning to food again in order to soothe, calm, nurture me. And so I was feeling the emotions as I encountered a couple of, relational tricky incidences or relationships. Really, really felt these emotions so big. And then at the end of that week, kind of coming out of that with that Chris Corsi quote of reminding us that healthy minds are full of appreciation. Last week, I felt much more balanced, still some ups and downs, but much more balanced as I really intentionally looked at and reminded myself to spend time in appreciation and to spend more time with the Emmanuel approach, more time connecting with God personally. So what I'm so encouraged is that we can actually we can't focus on everything all at the same time, right? And yet, as I spend kind of these times of intentional focus, that these different parts of life and experiences can be so enhanced. And what I really want to focus on next is sleep, because I really see and I'm more, I'm convinced more and more of how sleep impacts my ability to deal with cravings, my ability to handle my emotions, my ability to be resilient, so many things, to make healthy food choices, so many things hinge on sleep. So that I feel like is my next area of focus. So I look forward to journeying together with you through that. Hydration maybe can be my area of focus further down, but I felt like it went really well today, especially because I happened to find a couple of bags of this really, really lovely chamomile peppermint tea that I've really been enjoying, and it has helped on rainy, cold days for me to enjoy hydrating through that yummy tea. Exercise today was just hauling things around and working. I mentioned that before COVID, when I was very active at work, to go from one area of our facility to the area where we used to live in our facility, there were 72 stairs. And so I was doing these stairs up and down all the time. And yeah, and then since COVID, of course, I've been much, much more sedentary. And since starting the journey with you, have been walking and really loving that. So today was just the physicality of being at work, but not a specific walk. So I hope the rain lets up, and as you know, my days get a little bit less busy here after our guests leave, perhaps I can go back to having enjoyable walks outside. But got lots of physicality during the day today, which was very helpful. And my reward is just I think just this idea of where we focus, these areas that we focus, we can really experience change, and transformation is possible, and that is so rewarding for me. So thank you for sticking with me. I know this has been a little bit long, but I am very hopeful for transformation in your life as well, and I am already looking forward to seeing you tomorrow and to seeing how we can progress as we embrace this nourishing journey together.